Wanda, go.
5, 4, 3, 2. You are listening to the Voices of Change, only on Intellectual Radio. And my name is Jan, and I'll be your host this evening. And I just want to make sure that everyone can see me on Facebook Live. I'm not seeing myself on Facebook Live, so I want to make sure you can see me. We're going to have Miss Wanda, who's the VP over here, check for me.
You are beautifully on Facebook Live.
I am on Facebook Live, and it must be me. I don't know.
Viewers, say hello to them.
Viewers, hey, viewers, I want you guys to give me some like. Oh, hearts, I want to see some hearts. That's right, I love hearts. Please give me some hearts and likes and tell folks that we're on Facebook Live. I'm going to need your help today. Today I'm going to be doing it solo and doing it all alone. So what I'm going to need you to do is make some comments for me. Let me know what you're thinking as I'm going through this. I need your comments. Today, during our Real Talk segment, we will discuss the top news stories. I'll need your help again, so really, I'll need you to comment as I read the topics. If you have anything to add to it, please let me know. A big shout out to our business partners, GV Entertainment, Smith Music Association, and Oda Enterprises. What have you been doing for the past week? What I've been doing, did everybody watch Bobby Brown? And what'd you think about it? Let me know what you thought about it. One of the ahas that everyone said about that Bobby Brown show was, of course, the fact that him and Miss Jackson, If You're Nasty, kicked it. Did that surprise you? And what about the other show that's out on Tuesday night? Not that I'm one to just talk about all these shows, but the Have and Have-Nots, raunchy. It's getting a little cray-cray to me, though. So tell me what you think about that, too. Every week I start off with the scripture. For today, I'm going to start off with Jeremiah 29:11. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Now we're going to come right back. I see Taylor's on there. Hey, Taylor, and Nicole Hamilton is also watching. Hey, all the way from Minnesota. It's always good to know that you got your ears on. And I appreciate all of you, and I'm going to try to have this more interactive, so I do want you to comment as you hear things, and I'm going to still work on seeing you on Facebook. Again, I'll be right back. You're listening to the Voices of Change, only on Intellectual Radio. What's wrong with this? Where are you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Just with me, you can't leave your worries behind. Just let your mind be free.
It's weird.
And you went out and
Maybe that's my shit.
You come out and step with me. And take this slow, or however fast you wanna go. Baby, my flow is everlasting.
go onto your page. You're on your page. It's not coming up.
It normally comes up like the first one, particularly when it's live.
And you refresh the page. Pull it down. Wait. Oh, I know it. You know what? Close the app up altogether. Oh, you on another device.
Yeah. Still showing it. See, normally it'd be first. Refresh it. those just tuning in, you're listening to the Voices of Change only on Intellectual Radio. And again, this topic right here, the topics plural, we're going to talk about all these different news stories and also have comments on them. And hopefully you'll have comments on them too. They're relevant to us as a community, so I really want you to try to comment. I need all your comments. Come on, guys, comment and don't be shy. Mayor Rahm Emanuel's announcement Tuesday that he would not seek re-election came on the eve of a trial expected to serve as a prolonged examination of an incident that has haunted his second term, the shooting of Laquan McDonald. Rahm has been collecting cash as if he was running for re-election, and now the mayor's millions fill a campaign treasure chest that is his to use as he sees fit. Now, I can't use it on vacations or fancy cars or fine jewelry, but there are no rules or regulations about what he can do with the money in the political world. At this point, it's uncertain if his announcement was due to personal reasons, personal ambitions, or if he's just ready to move on. Despite Emanuel's exit, the McDonald shooting could still loom over the 2019 election as the scandal shaped the careers of several contenders of the popular field. Candidates include Gary McCarthy. He's a former superintendent who he fired when the controversy first came out and deepened. Lori Lightfoot, the former Chicago Police Board president, who has played a central role in the administration police reform efforts. In his remarks on Tuesday morning, Emanuel largely focused on personal reasons for leaving office and did not directly address the McDonald scandal. His spokesman said that he didn't leave the office because of that scandal. Now, we all know being the mayor of a city, particularly a large city like Chicago, that has been plagued with violence that we haven't seen in a couple of decades. It's a thankless job. We know it's a thankless job. But Rahm, on the pluses, he's well connected, but one can't ignore the cover-ups, particularly with the Laquan McDonald, and the violence in the city. There was a weekend, where we had 75 shootings in the city of Chicago. Now, we all know that he's hired a lot of policemen. There are a lot of people on the street. It's just not enough. But can anyone else who comes into that position as a newbie, without the connections, without the political clout, but with the sheer will, can they do the job? Rob has made his decision, so now we should look forward to who the next mayor will be. We have a long list, and I'm sure that list is even getting longer as we speak. We have a long list, so we're going to talk about that list. First of all, we all know about Gary McCarthy. He's one of them. He's a former superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, and again, he was fired by Rahm Emanuel in the aftermath of the Laquan McDonald shooting video. McCarthy entered the race promising a crime-fighting strategy to reverse a mass exodus from Chicago triggered by violence. Now, it makes you kind of wonder about McCarthy. He's going to go based on a crime-fighting strategy. I wonder if that's the same strategy he used when he was the superintendent of the Chicago Police. Don't have anything against McCarthy. I'm just wondering if those strategies and all that huffing and puffing, if it's going to really make a difference. The next person is Paul Vallis, and everyone knows him as former CEO of Chicago Public Schools, and he recently oversaw the school district in Philadelphia and Louisiana. He ran unsuccessfully for Illinois governor and lieutenant governor. He launched his campaign by hammering away at the issue of school closing and declining enrollment, which is a big deal also. But then again, we have to look at each of these contenders as someone who could possibly have oversight over the entire seat of Chicago. Lori Lightfoot, appointed by Emanuel to be president of the Chicago Police Board, former assistant U.S. attorney. Lightfoot's background put her in a good position to capitalize on the aftermath of Laquan McDonald shooting and other police scandals. She would be Chicago's first openly gay mayor. Dorothy Brown, familiar name, clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, currently under a federal grand jury investigation into alleged job and promotion selling in her office. Brown attracted a little more than 20% of the vote in the 2007 mayoral race, running against Richard M. Daley. Someone made a comment about he's saying he's number one on the list now that Rom is out. Number one. Who?
McCarthy is saying that.
McCarthy. McCarthy. That's interesting. McCarthy's saying that he's number one now. Since Rom is out, now he wants to get in the game. And he's not only in the game, he think he's a forerunner. He's one of the forerunners in the game. This will be interesting to see how all this pans out. Another person is Jamal Green. Now that name is very familiar for those that are into activism. Jamal is a community activist in Chicago Black Lives Matter movement, longtime Emmanuel critic. Green's participation in protests against Emmanuel and his police department landed him in jail. And by being in jail, sometimes that's not a bad thing. By being in jail, he's gotten the public eye. He's more visible now, and people are more aware of him. So it's interesting to see how all that'll come out. Troy LaRiviere, president of the Chicago Principals and Administrators Association, an outspoken critic of Emmanuel's stewardship of CPS. He was removed from his position as principal at Blaine Elementary in 2016. He was the first to make public moves toward a 2019 run against Emmanuel. And then we have, everyone knows about him because he's been in the news so much lately because of giving money to people, and they really tried to get him for that one. Willie Wilson, businessman and candidate for mayor in 2015, candidate for president in 2016, a third place finish in the 2015 mayoral election, and a practically non-existent campaign for president in 2016. None of this has dimmed Wilson's enthusiasm. He is very enthusiastic, and he is really, appears to be really for the people. He's a wealthy businessman and philanthropist. Wilson demolished campaign finance caps in the 2019 race with a $100,000 donation to his own campaign in April. And as I mentioned earlier, he was also giving out money, and they didn't like that, but it was all legal. The next person is Neil Sales Griffin. The 30-year-old tech entrepreneur promised to break the mold as he announced his run for mayor. He said, "I'm not a traditional politician." Jerry Joyce. He's a former assistant state's attorney and son of a clout-heavy Chicago politician. He was set to begin circulating petitions last week for a run as a law and order candidate. For whatever reason, that law and order sounds like a buzzword. The next candidate is Amara Anahia. Inya? Thank you. Amara Inya, the daughter of Nigerian immigrants. Inya lives in Garfield Park and is the director of the Austin Chamber of Commerce. She dropped out of the 2014 mayoral race in favor of Alderman Bob Fioretti. She faces a daunting fine for unfiled reports with the Illinois Board of Elections left over from her 2014 run that could keep her off the ballot, but I'm sure she has her people working on that, and I'm absolutely sure that that's going to be cleared up before the time. Next person is John Colzer. Colzer has failed twice in attempts to dislodge aldermen in the 11th Ward, but he forced Daley into a runoff on his second attempt. He now aspires to be the latest son of Bridgeport to ascend to the mayorship. The latest son, following behind the Daleys, I imagine. Matthew Ronnie. Ronnie, a DePaul student studying poli-sci, is running on a broad-based set of progressive policy issues that make up the platform of what he calls the Garden Party. The Garden Party. Now, I've never heard of that one. So those are the candidates so far, but that doesn't really mean anything because candidates can begin filing their petitions between November 19th and November 26th. There's also people that have been talking about throwing their hat in the ring. Some of the names tossed around is Alderman Roderick Sawyer, Alderman Amelia Pawar, Ricardo Munoz, Chicago Public School Board Chair Jerry Chico, U.S. Representative Mike Quigley, former Obama Education Secretary Ernie Duncan, Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan. Also, if you remember, Cook County Clerk David Orr from way back. In fact, he's retired. But he said that Emmanuel's decision not to run may change his mind about going out of his gleeful retirement. So who knows? He may throw his hat in. And there may be many others. But I think what we really, really need to think about, I think there's a party that's scheduled or some kind of not a march, but celebration because of Ram announcing that he won't run again. And a lot of people are extremely ecstatic over Ram not running. And I know that there's been some things that Ram has done that none of us are probably happy with. And I know that in a leadership role, many times you have to make those tough decisions. And, sometimes a person may think that they did it for one reason and it may be another, or maybe everyone's right. I know the violence in Chicago is horrific, particularly for those of us that reside within the city limits. And I know that something has to be done. We have people now, I don't know, all of a sudden people now are, oh, someone just gave me an interesting name. Valerie Jarrett. Now, that would be interesting. That would be really interesting because just like Ram, she has a connection, she has a clout, she can keep getting that TIF money. I mean, she as a woman, she probably could have a different perspective. Some of her decisions would probably be made a little differently. Valerie Jarrett. That's an interesting one. I'm going to go and read and see what some of you are saying. So just give me just a minute. We have Mr. Burke said, if you weren't running before, don't run now. Wallace Bishop Williams, hey, I'm glad you're watching. Haven't seen you watching for a while. We have Romaine Oda. Hey, Romaine, I know you're going to be watching from Indianapolis. I know you're one of our most consistent watchers. And Nicole Hamilton, always good hearing from you, seeing you again. Taylor, thank you. I hope we have a great show too. But the way to make it great is to give me some hearts, put up some likes, share it, and also comment on some of these stories. And this story I know you know about because you're a sports enthusiast. We're talking about Nike. Nike assigned Colin Kaepernick to a new multi-year endorsement deal, making him the face of the 30th iteration of the Prize Just Do It campaign. A slogan that sits atop a black and white image of the embattled gunslinger, believe in something. Even if that means sacrificing everything, it reads, as it presently stands, the announcement is a collection of unknown combined with ambiguous phrasing. There is no stated reason why Nike cares about Kaepernick or his message outside of what it could do for their wallets. And as I was reading this, I thought, well, isn't that what most businesses do? They're in business to fatten their bottom line, to increase their profits, to make the shareholders happy. So most of them aren't, a lot of them are into social equity and social issues, but a lot of them, the bottom line is what drives them. So this is not surprising. I was surprised to learn that Nike had been paying Colin all along, waiting for the right moment. And I guess the right moment is now. Didn't know they were paying him even though he's been off the bench. But it was a smart move. It's a victory for Nike. Colin's jersey has consistently topped NFL merchandise sales, despite not having been on a roster for the past 2 seasons. Celebrities often publicly support Kaepernick's causes, amplifying his reach. In fact, he's already generated $43 million in media exposure for Nike since the announcement of the new campaign, which was, I think, yesterday or the day before. $40 million in free marketing, free media exposure. That's significant. And the timing is nothing short of fortuitous for the apparel empire, as the brand apparel deal with the NFL is cemented until 2028. So Nike has a deal with the NFL for the next 10 years. Wow. They are free to capitalize on Colin's movement while remaining sure their assets are safely guarded. So I know previously a lot of us weren't buying Nikes. Now, when I was looking at social media, a lot of people are saying, you know what? I think I'm gonna look at something and buy something Nike, because Nike has pushed Colin up front and center. which is a positive thing. And for all of those naysayers, I know there's been a lot of people saying there were some farmers and country musicians that said they were gonna burn their Nikes because they were so offended that Nike would support someone who would dare take a knee, and they wanted to boycott Nike. And I think the first day there was a slight dip in the market for Nike stock. I don't know if it's recovered yet because I haven't checked on it, but I'm sure it's going to recover and even exceed that because now they're even going to get other niches of people buying Nike. It was a real smart move. And we don't even have to talk about social issues. A good corporate organization is socially responsible. I'm sure Nike wants to be looked upon as that. So it's just a great move. But then they talked about capitalism with Nike. And it says, historically, capitalism's troubling allure has captured many black dynamos. And they talked about the Hall of Famer Charles Barkley in a Nike campaign. I'm not your role model. I don't remember that. I kind of remember that, but not really. Then the director Spike Lee, known for acclaimed films depicting black life and its rigors, was never asked to speak on the issues that elevated his profile, while Nike whisked him into ads with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, he's infamous for not saying anything about social issues, and he was Nike's poster child. Republicans buy sneakers too, says Michael Jordan. So, I'm not faulting Nike or anyone else for what they're coining here as exploitation, and only because the exploitation, I look at it as mutual exploitation. In the case of a Michael Jordan, I don't know how much money, if anyone can tell me, how much money he made off Nike in a year, or how much money he's made off Nike over the past 20 years. Even Spike Lee, not only the notoriety, him being in the public eye, the monetary, so I'll call that mutual exploitation. Is that your phone? No? Oh. So I'll call it mutual exploitation for the sake of coining a term. Then this article was written from a perspective that I typically agree with. It says, eventually we must ask if we are trading cultural influence for currency. Cultural influence for currency. Nike likely is not selling gear with Kaepernick's kneeling, or his stated issues with capitalism, or his disdain for the president. It'll be neatly packaged rhymes and slogans, enough to make one remember who's being honored, but unwilling to endorse his true motives. And again, I still see that as a win-win, because just making him one that is honored, that in essence mean that his platform will also be known, his platform will also be spread, and he'll get compensated for it. And I wouldn't expect Nike to endorse his true motives. Let's see if we have any comments on that. Anybody got anything to say about Nike? Come on, I know you guys got something to say about Nike. Tell me you went to the store and bought a pair of Nikes. Just don't tell me you burnt your Nikes, okay? Nothing on the Nikes. This next story, oh my gosh, how much can the Catholic Church take? Two Chicago area priests arrested in Miami Beach after being caught performing sex acts in a car. Two priests from the Chicago area were arrested in Miami Beach on Monday after police observed the two men performing sex on one another in a parked car. Reverend Diego Barrio, 38, and Reverend Edwin Geraldo Cortez, 30, were the two priests who were involved. The alleged sexual act took place around 3:20 p.m. on Monday, according to a police report. This is also adjacent to a playground on the block the car was parked, police confirmed. Cardinal Cupich, Archbishop of Chicago, has removed Father Barrio from ministry immediately and withdrawn his faculties to minister in the Archdiocese of Chicago, effective immediately. I am so glad he did, even though, oh boy. Yeah, this was lewd, this was public, this shouldn't have been done. They take an oath of celibacy. but this was two grown adult men. I'm not saying that, oh man, somebody's gonna bite my head off for this one. But I look at this, different than I look at what happened in Pennsylvania, in other words. Either priest could apply for work at another diocese. I think that's interesting. A spokesperson for the Archdiocese said, but they would likely need to present their Chicago employment records, and then it would come out that they were fired. So hopefully they won't be in the priesthood anymore. But then again, I look at this as two adult consenting men. No, it was lewd. They shouldn't have done it in the middle of the day. They shouldn't have done it in public. They shouldn't have done it near a playground. But it doesn't even compare. It's not even the same thing as the scandals that has rocked the church. Now we're going to talk about Aretha, and then I'm going to go on a break because I know Aretha's going to be long, and I'll probably get people who disagree with me on this Aretha thing, but I was one of the ones who sat there and watched, for the most part, 8-9 hours of Aretha. And you have to look at something that grand and something that, how they honored the Queen, and you have to think about what are the real takeaways. There were so many speakers and so many people told great personal stories, and I thought that was absolutely fabulous. I particularly liked George Mathis when he said that the last time he talked to her, they were very close, and she told him she loved trivia, she loved news, she was up to date on everything. And she said, whatever happened to the people in Flint? I heard they're not getting any more water. And I thought that was interesting because I remember when that came out, there was water coming from all over the country. People were bringing water. Well, now the water has stopped. And the babies, the children, the adults, the senior citizens are getting sick because they're being poisoned in Flint, Michigan, which is what, an hour and a half, 2 hours from Chicago. Aretha it was probably on her mind because Flint, Michigan is right down the road from Detroit. Well, not really right down the road, a couple hours, but she was conscious of it. And she was conscious of a whole city being poisoned, a whole city that is majority minority being poisoned. So she told Judge Mathis, he said when he was standing at the podium, he said, what I promised her I'd do was follow up on that, and I'm going to get those folks water. And I challenge all of us, if we're aligned with organizations, even if not, we can all do something. Those people don't have water to drink, water to wash themselves, water to cook. What a case of water would do. So we need to revisit that. But we also need to put pressure, because not only do we need to bring them water, why is it taking so long? We know, okay, monetary, legislative. They need to fix that. That would never happen in an affluent city. Why has it been going on in Flint, Michigan for so long? Why are we allowing it to go on in Flint, Michigan for so long? Why aren't we jumping up and down and protesting about that? Because believe me, if it's happening in Flint, Michigan, I guess we better start checking our water in all urban, high minority cities. Everyone was talking about Ariana Grande. First of all, her dress. Her dress was short. She's young. Her people probably told her it was okay, no biggie. I didn't have a problem with her dress at all. I mean, yeah, it was inappropriate, but haven't all of you churchgoers, haven't you been in church and you've seen that young girl that may dress like she's going to the club? And what do? Maybe you take her to the side when you have like one-on-one time, and you may kind of suggest, maybe you can wear a little something different, or maybe you can wear a shawl over it. But it's really, what she had on was, to me, no biggie. The thing that everyone jumped up and down about was her and the bishop. On Friday at the Greater Grace Temple in Detroit, friends, family members, fans, music icons, and politicians came together to celebrate the life of the Queen. But after singer Ariana Grande took the stage to sing Natural Woman, A Funeral Fit for a Queen, also served, this is written from the perspective of some feminists, to serve as a reminder that there isn't a single place in the country where women can feel safe from sexual assault and harassment. I have issue with this. I have issue because I'm so dang tired about hearing the narrative about black men who can't keep their hands off women, or black men have a propensity to rape, or black men do this. Now you have a bishop who is at the services of Aretha Franklin that is seen by millions. Do you think, even if he was, let me just go out on a limb and say, okay, maybe he was a little whatever. Do you think that's a platform he'd do it on? Really? Do you think he doesn't have any control over himself, so he just has to grab her and squeeze her breast? Do you really think that? And how many of us as women that are in church have been in church and someone may have, I don't know, hugged you too tight or whatever? Let me ask you this. What do you do? If someone does it where it was offensive to you, everyone has different levels of what's offensive. What's offensive to me may not be offensive to you. But if someone ever crossed the line, do you just ignore it? Would it have been simple if she felt like she was a small woman? I was watching it when it happened. That didn't cross my mind until they came back and kept showing the shots of his hand under her rib cage. But if she felt he was touching her breast, wouldn't you kind of slightly move it? That wouldn't have caused, I don't think that would have caused alarm. I've had people hug me and I'm like, you're getting too close to the twins. It doesn't cause alarm. They just laugh and go, oh baby, I'm sorry. I mean, why can't suffer in silence? I'm just not understanding this. Her perspective of someone, and I don't even know if this is her perspective because I haven't heard her speak. I just heard everyone else speak about it. And I'm just so tired about hearing this narrative about, this is a prominent black bishop. That just kind of got to me. I guess that, and then Bishop Ellis later apologized to Grandy and her fans. He was being very gracious. And he said, I don't know, I guess I put my arm around her. Maybe I crossed the border. Maybe I was too friendly or too familiar. But again, I apologize. He grabbed her. She appeared to be very tiny, very small frame. And he probably just, I don't know. It didn't look like anything sexual when I saw it, when I was sitting there watching it. I thought personally what he said about the taco or something, he said something about her name. Now I thought that was, I thought that was like, why did you say that? I thought that was a little, but I never thought when he put his arm around her. And we as women, if someone does invade our space, I don't see anything wrong with saying it's best in many, which means nothing. It's best to say something right then. If someone puts their hand around you and they brush or they, like he was holding it because he was standing there with her, why couldn't she take her hand and move it down? He would have known exactly what she was doing. No one would have known any different. It wouldn't have caused a scene. It wouldn't have ruined the service. We have to start being more vocal. If there's something that is going on that we feel that is invading our space, I think we should react on it. Not, hours later and then all this. I've been seeing this clip so often, over and over again. And I know many of you disagree, talk to many people about it, and they think, yeah, he was trying to fill her up. I'm like, yeah, right. He has no control, so he's going to fill her up at Aretha Franklin service, and he's a presiding bishop. Really? Maybe he did. I don't know. But I think if he did, and if she felt uncomfortable, she should have moved his hand. She even could have whispered something to him. I mean, we as women have to do that all the time. Don't get so close. Back up. Okay, come on. I'm waiting for. That's right, Mary. I agree. Well, I know Mary because we kind of cut from the same cloth. Mary says to speak up and say something if you are uncomfortable. No one's offended when you do that, because we're at a point now. It's so stupid where a man could hardly say, you know what, I think you're a nice looking woman, because if I'm in that headspace and I'm offended and I tell my boss, you know what, he's harassing me. So now things are so different now. Things are just way, way, way too sensitive. Don't get me wrong, hashtag me too. If any of you guys are listening, don't take this the wrong way. But I really think in the event that someone does something and cross the line, you need to say something. This is one that I saw about the eulogy, and I know I'm going to get a lot of kickback on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to talk about Aretha Franklin's pastor who did the eulogy and my take on it. I'll be right back on the Voices of Change.
Dance with me, leave your worries behind. Just let your mind be free. Lean on me, I'll give you all you need. You come out and step with me.
I like this song. Who is that? That's nice. We're gonna go back and read some of these comments. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to the Voices of Change on Intellectual Radio. I saw some interesting comments when I was on a quick break. And one of the comments was from Miss Wanda of He Say, She Say that comes on 2 to 4 o'clock on Sunday. And if you haven't listened to it, you should. She said that the Catholic Church needs an overhaul. And Wanda can say that because Wanda has a Catholic background. Well, anyone could say it because it's obvious. Anytime you have 1,000 kids who are molested and the priests were juggled around, there's a problem in there. Also, Wanda agreed with me also with the 2 consenting adults. Yeah, that was kind of, I don't even put that in the same category as the little babies. We also heard from Mr. Burks, and that was at Taco Bell. He said, yeah, that was more offensive, the comment about Taco Bell. The hug was a mistake. I'm so glad you agree with me because I've been getting so many people that said, no, he was trying to fill her up. No, he was trying to do this. I don't think that was his intention at all. But that Taco Bell thing, that's like, that was something. That was really something. Now we're going to go on and talk about the pastor, the good pastor. The eulogist, Reverend Jasper Williams, was criticized for a political address that described children being in a home without a father as abortion after birth, and said Black lives do not matter unless blacks stop killing each other. He spoke for 50 minutes, and at no time did he properly eulogize her. And people are complaining and saying that's why they don't go to church, that's why we can't get young people, that's why, because he was just wrong. Okay, I always have a different take. My take on it was a bit different. In my opinion, what he was trying to do was he started out and he said, okay, we're talking about the Queen of Soul. So everybody, well, he wasn't the only one that made reference to the Queen of Soul. So then he goes off into this thing to say that had black men or black people lost their soul? I think he comes from a vantage point of, he's been around a little while and he knows that we can do better. And I think people, as young people say, well, older people agree with that because they're old. And it could be true because of what they've seen. They've seen us better. So all they want to do is call people out or make people aware so perhaps they can be better. He said something about Black lives. He said he had minimized the Black Lives Matter movement, and Stevie Wonder said Black lives do matter, and Black lives do matter. I don't think that's what he was saying. I think what he was saying was Black lives must not matter until Black people start respecting Black lives and stop killing ourselves. Now, come on. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. When I looked at stats for our city, beautiful Chicago, in Chicago, 75% of the people killed, of the people murdered, 75%, 3/4 are Black. 71% of those who murder them are Black. Now that's some serious Black on Black crime. And that's what he was talking about. He was talking about when you're jumping up and down about Black Lives Matter, and I know for those, I know the Laquan started today, and I know, but for those of us that are advocates of Black Lives Matter, Black lives do matter, all lives matter. But we have got to get a handle on this Black on Black crime, on this self-hate. He also said that they are not fathers in the home no more, and said that a black woman cannot raise a black boy to be a man. Now, I don't know about that. I had a son as a single parent for a while, and I know I couldn't raise a son by myself to teach him how to be a man. He had grandfather, uncles, cousins. He had men. He had men to model because I had a lot of men in my family. But could I have done it by myself? No. But I've seen women who can. But I think they're at a disadvantage when they don't have a man to show them how to be a man. I'm not a man, and I can't show a boy how to be a man. This is what's interesting, because this is something that people got upset about too. But our CNN Don Lemon, he says that more than 72% of African American births are out of wedlock. That's problematic. He also talked about integration and the decline of black businesses. You don't have to be an economist to know that black businesses have declined. They've tanked. They've dropped. But not only black businesses, white businesses, Latino businesses, they've all declined. Now, everyone knows the role of market concentration. All these big companies are gobbling up companies. Companies like Amazon are taking over the world. Someone was telling me the other day that Amazon and Apple are two companies that are worth over $1 billion or something. So yeah, we know that that's problematic. But think about this. In 1985, 60 black-owned banks were providing financial services to their communities. Today, you would think, 1985 was 33 years ago, you would think it'd be like at least a few more. Today, just 23 remain. In 11 states that headquartered black-owned banks in 1994, not a single one is still in business. Of the 50 black-owned insurance companies that operated during the 1980s, 50, today, only 2 remain. The movement of millions of black families to integrated suburbs over the last 40 years is welcome. I mean, I lived in the suburbs before. A lot of us have, we got the jobs, we did all right, we moved to the suburbs. That was a good thing. But the effect of it also weakened the viability of the many black-owned independent businesses left behind in historically black neighborhoods. I'm not by no stretch saying that we should have stayed in the neighborhoods to support the businesses. But what I'm saying is that the good Reverend was right in the role of integration. Many factors played into the decline of black businesses. Market concentration, and yes, the choices, and yes, integration. And I know I'm going to have many people who disagree with that. So, how much time I got?
10 minutes.
I got to read fast. Cosby star shamed. Former Cosby Show star Jeffrey Owens said he has received an outpouring of support after speaking out about the job shaming he experienced because he works at Trader Joe's. This guy handled this so good. Owens, proudly wearing his Trader Joe's name tag, sat down with Robin Roberts of Good Morning America and reflected on the dignity of work. It is dignified and with dignity to work anywhere. There's no place that's a better place to work. There's places that pay you better, may have better benefits, may have a nice little office, but working, just the fact that you're getting up and doing that grind, there's dignity in that. Well, after someone tried to shame him and show him in a Trader Joe's shirt, now things are coming his way. It's been nonstop contact and emails and phone calls, and actor Jeffrey Owens returns to the limelight after being job shamed for working. So it actually worked out for his good, and that's scripture. Tyler Perry offered the 57-year-old actor who once played Bill Cosby's son-in-law, Elvin, on The Cosby Show, a gig on Oprah Winfrey Network days after he saw pictures of him at the supermarket in New Jersey. Jeffrey Owens, I'm about to start shooting Owens' #1 drama next week, Perry announced on Twitter Tuesday, referring to, of course, I want you to guess. What do you think the number one show on Oprah's Own? Well, I'll tell you. The have and the have-nots. So he said, come join us. Because Tyler said he has so much respect for people who hustle between gigs. He started to shoot next week. It was an offer he couldn't refuse. And now Mr. Owens, who they were trying to shame because he was working at a supermarket, is once again gainfully employed. Is that wonderful or is that wonderful? A Chicago man who filed a lawsuit against the Archdiocese of Chicago. Okay, anybody who is familiar with Dan McCormick, he was a priest at St. Agatha, and he has been in jail since, 2007 for sexual abuse. And people who are familiar with that area, familiar with the West Side, familiar with that church, knows that there were people who got big payoffs and there was no abuse, because it was a matter of saying, he did this to me. There, in my opinion, I'm gonna get in trouble in my own church. In my opinion, there was not enough due diligence done around it. I thought it was probably more expensive to have the lawyers go through all those piles and piles. So what they did, if someone said that they were abused, they got a paycheck between 1.5 and $3 million. So I know of at least one, two, three. I know of a few young men that have got paid, and they weren't. Boy, I'm not going to be a poet. They got paid, and nothing happened to them. So, a Chicago man who filed a lawsuit against the Archdiocese of Chicago alleging sexual abuse by a notorious former priest has been ordered to repay the church for the money it spent defending itself, a Cook County Circuit judge ruled earlier this month. Church officials in Chicago say that revelations regarding other fraudulent cases could be forthcoming, a prospect that both the Archdiocese and victim advocates say will be a disservice to the genuine victims, and it will. The man, identified in courts only as John Doe, said in a 2015 lawsuit that he had been sexually assaulted by Daniel McCormick, a former priest who was convicted of 2007 of molesting 5 boys associated with a Chicago Catholic school that was connected to the parish where he was pastor. While serving time in prison, this John Doe discussed plans for the lawsuit on the telephone with several people, including a cousin who had previously settled with the Archdiocese over abuse claims against McCormick. So he's on the phone at prison using his 5 or 10 minutes to talk to his cousin about getting some big money. And he knew it would work because no one would ever question it. During the initial phase of the lawsuit, lawyers for the Archdiocese subpoenaed more than 300 hours of audio recording from those phone calls. The church then found evidence they claim proved Mr. Doe was lying about the abuse. Mr. Doe eventually withdrew his case for reasons unrelated to the tapes, but he said he planned to refile. In July, the Archdiocese filed its own suit against Mr. Doe, alleging that under an Illinois statute, the church was entitled to receive compensation for costs associated with defending itself against a bogus claim. Earlier this month, Judge Kathy Flanagan agreed with the church, ruling that based on unrefuted and uncontradicted evidence, the allegations were not well grounded in fact. And now they're on a hunt. Anybody who got some of that money, I know they don't have it now because some of the people we followed, and I know but any of those people who got it, they are following now. Now they're doing the due diligence. It's a shame it's after the fact, but they are looking for those that showed inconsistencies that were probably not abused. And I know there's going to be several of them, so I expect to hear more about this. Laquan McDonald, the jury selection began today. That's something that we're going to be checking out and talking about every week. And my time is up. I so much appreciate everyone that signed in. I'm going to read some of the names that I see. I see Lisa from Arizona. Hey, Lisa. I see Sarah Latrice. Hey. I see Romaine, Dorothy Macon from Memphis. Hey. Selena Gutierrez. Hey, girl. Oh, or should I say my love? And Wanda, Miss Wanda from He Say, She Say comes on Sunday 2 to 4. Make sure you watch that too. Susan Tyler, hey, we have to plan something soon. Sheila Robertson, I didn't see you Sunday. I hope I didn't forget anyone. If I did, it wasn't my design. Tune in again next Wednesday at 6 p.m. to The Voices of Change, and have a blessed week.
Oh, yes. Yeah.